Okay, you guys look so good. I love that you have your full camera set up. I still have not done that.
We just did it
We've
yesterday.
been busy, yeah.
This is what we've done for PepperCast.
Wow, I'm feeling a little, I didn't show up here. 2020, seriously, like what the fuck?
Yes.
It's been the most insane year. And I feel like, tell me if you guys feel the same way, but I feel like I call it the year of unrelenting challenges. But at the same time, because of those challenges, it's forced you to think differently or be innovative or try something new or something you've been talking about doing for a long time, like to do that thing or meeting people. Like I met you guys in 2020.
Yes.
Yeah. And like maybe if it was in 2020 and all the things that happened, we wouldn't have done the conference.
No,
because that's how we ended up. The key word is the pivoting. I'm pretty sure like everyone listening would be, oh God, that word, please don't use it anymore. But yeah, it's still
very, very mid-90s in Ross with a couch, right?
Yes. Oh, that means yeah.
But the thing for the longest time, Ben and I avoided blaming 2020 for anything. We wanted to, like, every time we heard a meme or saw a meme or heard a joke about 2020, we're like, it's not 2020, because as you would know, as artists, every year is so challenging. What we do, it's not 9 to 5. We don't go do the same job every day over and over again. So every day presents new challenges, like, you know, how do you write a contract? How do you write this email? How do you follow up people without sounding creepy? Like even those small admin tasks. And then on top of that, there are other challenging things that you have to do, creative challenges, like how do I do double exposures that are different from others? And how do we do long exposures? How do we create a niche for ourselves? So
differentiate.
And how do we get these bookings and blah, blah, blah. So there've been a lot of challenges. And with us for the last 2.5 years, it's been a challenge traveling, having a life, and also doing work. So for the longest time, it didn't feel like 2020 was throwing something, because we were, you know, with everything with Black Lives Matter movement and with people not wearing masks and all of that, we had thrown ourselves into the social side of what was happening and completely switched off our active creative side. I mean, you were thinking creative solutions, like we were making videos of stay at home, videos for wear your mask and etc., or self-portraits to you know, to support the Black Lives movement. But it's very recently that the fact how different 2020 has hit us. It's been very recently. It's just very recently that all of that has started resonating. And I think that's because everything that's happening politically in the world has now started showing up in our work so much more and in our talks.
That's true.
Yeah. And that's when we've been like...
It used to be that we would sort of just let that stuff slide underneath whatever we were doing at the time.
Yeah.
Right? But these days it's a lot more out there, and you know,
it's how we live it's been defined by
our social responsibility.
Yes,
I think.
Everything, all the political commentary, social commentary that is happening has defined how we live, and all the lessons we have learned in 2020 have changed our, you know, view for life. And that's how 2020 has been remarkably different. And hopefully this would be the year that the younger generation can look back and feel like something was achieved by the end of it. Something came out of this whole chaos, like some lessons came through, hopefully. That it's not just one of those years that got highlighted,
comes and goes, and
got highlighted because we're all at home and then gets forgotten.
Netflix stocks went through the roof, you know.
And Zoom.
Much more to it than that. And Zoom.
This year has been highly educational. Now that we reflect on it, highly educational. So
emotionally
many of
so as well. Like the first couple of months were, like, I mean, I don't know for everybody, but just super hard, because
we were zombies.
Everything came to a complete halt. Like this year, we were supposed to be traveling to about 6 or 7 different countries, and all of that just came to a complete halt. And there was that hope in the first month or so that it was like, okay, this is just something small. It's not going to last. Yeah, and
By the end of the year, this shall be over.
yeah, all that hope has died, but it's been replaced with new hope, for a whole different way of doing things and a whole new, like, creative experience. And
Yes.
like you said, I mean, we've met so many cool people this year online.
Well, to be honest, we met you just before the pandemic, and we thought we would
That's true.
Yeah, we were in Mexico, and we were like, "Oh my God,
that is true." Yeah,
it's gonna happen." Then it didn't happen, and then it happened again. But I think what happened because of 2020 is, you remember how nervous I was when the first time we talked? I was like, after every 10 minutes, "I'm sorry, Stacey, I'm just so nervous talking to you." But with 2020, what it did was, with a lot of relationships, a lot of them, it just brought us together with this shared experience that we were all going through, on a very human level, rather than the influencer level, or like, I now connected with this such and such person or such and such company.
I thought was brilliant was watching the late night hosts become YouTube personalities, right? Like they had to sort of, everyone was brought to the same sort of playing.
Yes,
it really made everyone kind of experience it together, which is really cool. Yeah,
we were all not having haircuts
or like the crazy haircuts.
We were just like, it was so good, like seeing Trevor Noah or Stephen Colbert and see them, and they are unkept, and you are sitting in your pajamas, and you're like, yes, no need to dress up today. Bring my cocktail. Where is the game of Mario? So first few months were definitely like that.
We can speak like that too, because we were very lucky being in New Zealand.
Yes.
I know the rest of the world's had a lot harder time of it.
Oh gosh, Every day it's filled with gratitude with what our government has done for artists and small business owners, and just the fact that for 100 days we had no community transmission in between, and now the countdown has started again for again with no community transmission. It's fantastic.
I mean, we're really lucky in Canada too. Our numbers are climbing, but not rapidly, but they are definitely going up again. We're really lucky to live where we live too. Like, our government's amazing. They really did take care of us. And I feel like most people here were really reasonable and really cared for one another. I mean, of course I follow what's happening in the States, but I don't live there, so I can't really speak. I don't think we can all really speak as if we know exactly what's happening if we're not living there. But from the outside, it looks terrifying. And the people that I do talk to that live there, it's just, they're definitely going through a much rougher time. I think the UK is as well. I think the UK just had some pretty hard policies put into place.
All of Europe is going into up in flames at the moment again, which is awful, because we
have such beautiful friends
Europe,
there,
and we have a lot of cool friends that we haven't got to catch up with.
And hearing their experiences is just so sad. So the practice of gratitude has been strong in 2020.
Yes.
It's been without, it used to be a practice we used to do. They used to be like, oh, we missed it today. We didn't do the gratitude journal or something like that. And now we wake up every morning, and it's without even thinking you are thankful for something. It just comes out. It's been a very good practice that it's now taken care of itself.
I think that's really important practice for a business owner, entrepreneur, because there's so much on your plate. There's always, always, always things that you need to be doing or should be doing, or people need something from you. And especially as a creative entrepreneur, you're constantly giving of yourself.
Yes.
Right. Not just of your service, but of yourself. So I think taking that moment, I think probably every day is really important.
I think it's even more important because when you're basically a creative person who has now become an entrepreneur, that's what most of us creatives have done. There are some who were entrepreneurial and they have taken up creative pursuits, but we both are creative people who then became entrepreneurial.
Sort of stumbled
in. Being an entrepreneur, you have so many goals, and most of them are slashed daily. Most of them are like, didn't happen. So with being a creative, every act of creating is such a happy moment. Every stroke that you make on a page feels good as you're doing it. And entrepreneurship cancels so much of it. So the practice of gratitude is, that's how we started it. We're constantly worried about, did we make that booking or not? Did we reach our financial goals or not? Do we get to do XYZ or not? Did we get published there or not? Like that bogged us down, and the creativity wasn't giving us joy. And then we started doing this gratitude journal thing where we would write 3 things that will make today great, and then 3 things that we are grateful for as it is. And we started doing that, and it was such a good practice. It made us creative again. So then now,
especially when you want to try and answer it differently as much as you can.
Yeah. And now, even if we haven't made a booking, even if somebody just replies back to the email, Ben and I celebrate. Celebrate. Like, Ella replied back. Oh my God, yes, Ella replied back.
You need to make a reel or I'm not on TikTok yet. I'm avoiding it. Or a reel of that. I think that would be an amazing one.
We've shared it on Instagram stories before, and so many people will DM us, but is this real? Like, so real. This is how we do it. It's have cheers. Like, sometimes we're busy doing something, can't have a drink. It's like, just fill up a glass of water and cheers. Like, this is good. And it just takes away your focus away from the negative, and you're now celebrating something. I don't think there is any like voodoo involved in it, that just because you are thinking about positive things, more positive things happen. I think scientifically what happens is it just takes away your mind from this constant waiting and celebrating the moment, and suddenly other things come in. And that's what living in a moment is all about, right? You're not just constantly what if, only if, what if. We have really dear friends in France, Karen Caleb from Cottonwood Studios, and they always say to us that don't say something is what you won't do. Instead, say what you would do.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
It's such a hard thing to actually practice, because it's so easy, like, I would never do this, and never actually say what you would do instead, and actually focus on that and talk about that, so it becomes a thing in your head rather than the other thing becoming a thing in your head. And reminding, because that's what happens in relationships as well, right? People that have hurt us in past, people that we don't aspire to be like, we think about those experiences so much that sometimes we do the same things in the same way that somebody who has hurt us has done. And we realize at one point through a therapy session, or just by looking in the mirror while you're crying, that, oh my God, I am such and such. Same person I hated so much. So I think it's such a powerful advice. Like, concentrate on the positives. It's it's incredibly important. Hard to do.
It is hard to do.
Because just like smiling, right? You need more muscles to smile than to frown. I think it's the same thing. You need so much more thinking power and will and optimism to think about positive things, whereas negative things just like, crowd us. Just as our
the whole smiling thing is a big thing though too. I mean, it does change the way that you see the world. If you whenever you meet somebody or pass somebody in the street, if you just smile at them, it's such a cool reaction when they smile back, and you get like this little like, yay, we had a connection. It was so cool. And it's such a dying thing. Even in New Zealand, the small little towns, it used to be, even just 10 years ago, I think social media has a big thing to blame with it. But it used to be that you'd stop and say hi to everybody in our hometown, like everybody knew each other. And now it's so much more guarded. Everybody's sort of.
Well, I come from India, where if you started smiling at everyone, you'll just go crazy.
Somebody come and arrest you.
But no. It's just like so many people on the road. You'll be like, hi.
Well, exactly.
Hi.
Just like constant smile and like.
But, la.
That's what I mean. You'll get done for drugs.
But But I think I told you the story before, Stacey, that when I came to New Zealand and people were smiling, and this was like 11 or 12 years ago, and people were smiling at me, I just thought they saw the most prettiest thing ever. I was like, I have arrived. New Zealand now knows its beauty. And why is everyone smiling at me? I must be the prettiest thing ever. Yeah. I mean, we're reading a lot of philosophy books.
Yeah.
A lot of those.
And I don't know if anybody out there hasn't read Sophie's World yet.
Yes.
Totally recommend that for It's an amazing read, a mind-changing read.
That's one book I recommend to everyone since a very young age. If someone said, which is one book, I'll be like, Sophie's World.
Yeah.
Read Sophie's World.
What is that one about? I've heard of it.
Such a cool,
I won't tell you the premise of it because the first page tells you the premise of it. And that's the whole joy of, the first chapter tells you the premise of it. So it's the whole joy of picking up that book. However, it's the book that after you've read it, you suddenly start understanding why the world is in different parts of the world, how it has grown to be as it has grown to be. Because it talks about philosophy and the history of philosophy. So the book is about history of philosophy, but there is a fiction story going in the background as well, which keeps you interested. If philosophy is not something that you're interested in naturally, then the fiction is really good behind the whole fabric of let's learn about philosophy. It's one of those books that, you know, you don't want to keep down because you're like, what happened next? What happened next? But while you are, you know, just busy figuring out what happens next because it's a mystery, you're learning so much about history and philosophy.
I need to do more of that. Well, our mutual friend, you guys met João. The first time I met him, I did a one-on-one mentorship. And he said to read books you wouldn't normally read, listen to music you wouldn't normally listen to. Same thing with movies. Or if you don't normally love, let's say, rap music, if that's not your thing, then to listen to it and find the parts of it that you do appreciate. And that actually blew my mind. It seems like such a simple thing, but you're so used to using like the same references over and over again or enjoying the things you normally would enjoy. And I think that does kind of stop you as an artist from growing and evolving and trying different things.
Yes.
But
my father used to always say that simple truths simply bypass you. You know, it's just those, and especially when we are stuck in a rut. Like, for example, all our double exposures have come from watching either movies, like foreign films, so we don't understand them without subtitles. We're watching it because we are now feeling the vibe rather than what they're actually saying.
Oh, I love that.
Indian films as well,
exactly.
or old Bollywood and
old
things.
Bollywood movies, they're black and white because they are doing experimental things in there. One of our the photo that has won the most awards, that double exposure, it's a triple exposure photo. It came from an old Bollywood song, and I had him listen as well to it, and he was like, oh my god, chills, and he couldn't understand what was happening except feeling the mood of the thing. So it really helps. But what happens when we are in a rut, we're so eager to get out of the rut, we just start doing, oh my god, if I just look at some photos of the artist who I love already, and if I start looking at things that I know already, maybe I'll get a quick answer. But it's actually the long way around. It's just nothing.
Those are the ones that pay off. When you're just trying to emulate something really fast. Make you learn anything or experience something new.
And you're not going to create something that's giving you joy or is different. It's just another copy of another work.
And what about because you guys launched your online education and mentorship. Your page looks gorgeous.
Thank you. We're so happy with the page. We got to like design each and every part of it. And there's so many more things we want to add on it, but it's slowly coming. But it's going really well. We've been able to mentor so many more people than we were able to before. Before pandemic, it was like maximum was 3 a month, and that was like stretching it. But now it's
a lot of other things to do, right? I mean,
with traveling. Traveling would take most of your time, but now it's so much more. And we're also doing accountability sessions as part of our mentoring sessions, which is once you have, people go to a workshop or have a mentor session, they feel inspired and they're like, yes, I learned so much. But 2 months down the line, they're like, forgot something, or that zeal is gone. So with
the sparkle has left, and now they're back to the same old maintenance mode they were in before.
And the thing is, the thing I keep repeating in our mentoring sessions as well is habit is not something you make overnight. You can you can have the will to make that habit, but it happens over time, and you are what you do repeatedly. So, which is why now with accountability sessions, I get to hang with them every month and be like, okay, so tell me what all you've done and what are your, your obstacles for not doing certain things. And it's really good. And that's getting us a lot of good feedback. So I'm excited about the accountability sessions out of all of them. And we're now going to start editing mentoring, which is...
Oh, yes. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
A lot of experience in that too. So in 2016, I think, right, we started another smaller company for editing for other photographers
called Tints of Genius.
Yeah. And I
didn't know about this one. I love you just like
yeah, we wound up way too busy with our travels. How I mean, at the point when we started it, we were going to be like living from home, and then we wound up, leaving home, traveling on the road for 2.5 years, and seeing the world. So it sort of took a back seat. But now COVID's here, and we've got a lot to share because we edited a lot of different photographers' works, like to how they wanted it, discussed a lot with them, and it's there's a lot to know out there.
Yeah,
right?
but one of the things we do with Tints of Genius is that we help people create their own presets. So sometimes we buy presets and we're like, yes, it looks so good and I bought it, but when I put it on my work, it doesn't work. So what we do is we ask people to send their 20 photos of their worst lighting situations, which they are always like, I don't know what to do with this. Then they fill in a form to tell us, this is what I want it to look like. Then I create a preset for them. And then I walk it be like 4 or 5 variations, shade, sunlight, etc.
This is how to make this work for you.
And then they can try it, and if they're happy, they're like, yes, I want to buy it. And so so we do that.
So all of that can be found at whenlightfalls.co.nz.
It's now
under one umbrella.
It looks amazing. It looks so good. I want to roll right back. So if you were to tell me, if let's say I'm one of your mentees and I was struggling with my creativity and I was just feeling like I'm shooting the same stuff all the time, maybe it's new because, for weddings, sometimes you feel like you repeat the same poses, the same types of shots, but for the client, it's new for them and they love it. So you keep doing that because it's a deliverable and that's what they want. But into this place, you're like, I don't actually know how to do something different anymore. Like I just can't get there. What would you say to me?
But the first exercise we do with every mentoring session is to figure out who they are. That's that's the premise of what their brand is, and that's the premise of how they work. Because some people haven't taken the time to understand who they are. They have just understood what the world wants.
God knows we did the first 3 or even 4 years, right? We were just like nose to the grindstone. Let's go.
We just wanted to be famous. That was our thing. And that was even post the boom of social media even, and we just wanted to be pre the boost of social
pre the boom
of social media. Got it. But it was such a stupid idea. We never took time to understand who we were. And the exercise that I do with my mentees is I give them a series of 4 or 5 questions, and there's a part of homework, and I tell them the sort of answers we wrote to them, because it's important. Otherwise, those questions are very open-ended. Like, who are you? It was a very open-ended question. But we did tell them how we answered it and what was our thought process and what helped us. And I think once people understand who they are, it gives them a new perspective on whichever art they're doing. So we not only work with photographers, we've started working with a small business who makes chocolate recipes at home, etc., and all of the things. So it's about going back to why did you start doing what you
Yes, I love that.
Like we thought for the longest time, we did so many online seminars and stuff. And every time they would ask why, I would look at Ben and be like, to earn money, man. I want to earn money. What why? It's money.
That's ostensibly, you need to earn money to live. So ostensibly that sits right at the top of pretty much any list. But you need to get that down a couple of tabs because
it's not, because if whatever you're doing is not bringing you joy, even in a 9-to-5 role, you're not going to progress further. So the moment we understood, like, okay,
you'll
step
always
back.
be chasing that money at the top.
So when we were like, step back, okay, of all the things that we could have picked at that time, why a camera and why weddings? that when we got into our why of like, oh, so I want to be around people because I didn't have friends growing up. And I am so excited to understand how two people come together. How do they become friends first? And then they say, I love you to each other. And they decide to build this whole thing. I am so excited to learn about that every time. Which is why I never use 24 to 70. I always have 50 or 70 to 100. I'm always like trying to get close to people, so I can, talk to them and be around them and notice the slight movements. If they are not having a good day, how do they communicate with each other? All the questions I have for our couples are also, but like, but like, what do you do if it really annoys you? Like, what do you do? So I'm just all full of that.
Well, this is the psychologist in you coming out.
Yes.
For you as well, you were bullied growing up, and your why.
I mean, for me, I just kind of want to prove myself. So every time I go, and even if it is like a wedding at a place we've shot before, and I'm starting to feel like maybe it's a little generic, like I think practically you're going to take 1,000 shots, they're going to end up with 1,000 shots. There's room there. Like if they're expecting those shots, that's awesome. They're going to get what they want, but there's room there for you to
blow their minds.
Yeah, that's exactly right. To do that thing, there's a couple of photos there that will just like change the game. And that's what I'm going for every time I go to a wedding. It's like maybe 5 photos that I really want, that are something I haven't done before.
And get the safe stuff first. You're like, this is what they're going to expect. Nail that. Done. Cross it off the list. Yeah.
I mean, the whole day I'm chasing those things. I don't know, so much of it's documentary that I don't actually know when those photos are going to come a lot of the time. I can plan ahead and think, hey, this time of the day, I think it will be awesome. Maybe this will plan out. But so much of the day you're chasing those 5 shots that all your photos come out looking amazing because you're always hunting for them. There's
you never
look, we took our couple here last night. This venue.
Remember we did that thing? That was a nice photo.
We're not going to do that again. That's the other thing, is we try to, like, even if we've done a venue like 5 or 6 times, it's like try and find something new.
So for the first 6 months, when we recognized that this was our why and we started living our why like this, what we recognized was that a combined why that keeps us motivated is smashing goals. Like these things that we love smashing goals, like setting new goals for us. So now what happened is when our couples or anyone who wants to book us comes to us, we tell them already, we don't repeat shots. So that expectation of like, of course they want that is immediately eliminated.
We really want this. And we'll say, like, we'll get something similar. It'll have the same feeling, but we'll see how it goes.
And we always explain to them that this photo happened for this couple because of their love story and how it inspired us. And your love story is going to inspire us completely differently. We hope, because every story is different. And so you're going to get magic, but it's going to be a very different sort of magic. It'll be your customized magic. And so that's
and those real moments.
And that's what happened to us. A lot of like photographer mentees will say like, oh, but people expect the same thing from me when it comes to editing, and they're not able to go out of that editing pattern or even with the styling of the photos like they do. And it's as an artist entrepreneur, you are able to set the pace for your business, which is supremely important. Which brings back to the same exercise that you can only set a pace of something if you know your own limits, and you know your limits if you know yourself. So it's just coming back to.
Also, I would add to that too, that you can't know your limits until you push them.
Yes.
Something that we always are striving to do. That's exactly why we've very nearly left behind traditional weddings at this point. We only do a couple of those a year, and we do elopements and adventure sessions outside of that. So
our adventure sessions, yes.
Tell Stacey. Are these different than the like elopements and?
Yes. So
it can include an elopement, but I'll let you explain.
Oh, I'm so excited about this. Okay, so for the longest time, for so many years, at least 4 years, we've been like, what is our niche? What do we do differently? And honestly, we literally go to people who had amazing websites. We'd go to people who had amazing websites and borrow words off of them for our website to make ours look amazing. Stupid thing to do. Don't do it. But a lot of newcomers do it. And totally understand why. Because you just like so quickly want to reach to where the other person is.
All you're doing is giving a potential client the same every time they go to a different website. It's the same thing, and so
It's the me too.
They don't know why they should spend money on this, and
You're ruining the market.
The whole industry suffers for it.
Yes.
We're doing the same thing.
And
because we just didn't know who we were and what our niche was. And then one day when we were doing this exercise of who we were, and I was figuring out that, this is why I shoot. Like for me, it's making friends and figuring out why people are together. And for Ben, is to give something new and prove himself that he was worthy of this role that somebody has chosen him for. We were like, okay, if we put these two things together, it means we want to spend more time with people and we want to give them something they have never seen before. That's what the bottom line is. So we're like, all right, our sessions are never going to be a one-day session. So our couples book us.
Like that's a minimum.
That's
right?
a minimum. Like that's
short for us.
That's when they come to us. They're like, okay, I want a one-day session. But by the time they booked us, it's a 2 or 3 day long session because we've told them how it's going to be. So our adventure sessions, basically. So Stacey, if you had booked us, you would know that it is in, for example, Iceland. That's all you know. You'll know where you will meet us. That's it. And then how it's going to pan out for next 3 days, you have no idea.
I love that.
Thing is planned. Hair and makeup artists are planned for them. All of it. They just have to open the door every morning. They know exactly. They don't have to worry about how their hair and makeup is going to look. They just have to drink their coffee and voila, something has come up because we've done all the mood boards beforehand with our artists. We help them pick the dresses because we know what will look good, like what color will look good in that scenery, but our couples don't know. So we'll help them pick the dresses. And sometimes we even pick it for them for a lot of surprise proposals that happen because the girl doesn't
that's amazing.
So
I'm definitely giving your information to someone.
So she's in her trackies thinking she's having a picnic somewhere or just going for a jog, and then there's a dress waiting for her.
Did you say going for a jog?
Yeah, sometimes they're going for a jog. Like, I'm just going for a jog.
It has to come down to what excuse will work on the day to get her out of the house.
Yeah.
And
to go to a beautiful place.
So,
so that happens with surprise proposals. But so a lot of times when people come to us for elopements, what we do is we'll do a session with them, a whole day of adventuring in some beautiful place, then drive to another spot on the second day where they'll say their vows. And then also day after, it will be their honeymoon session in a completely different part of that same country. So it's like they've seen the country, they've got photos of the pre-wedding jitters, the elopement love, and the post-wedding.
It's an experience that they get to share together, and it's not all pre-Googled. There was the thing, one of the big considerations was that when we first started doing this, a lot of people would say, hey, we're going to go here, here, and here. And these couples who come from, say, Singapore or America or wherever they've come from to New Zealand will have already Googled the heck out of it. Going, oh, hey, I want this, I want that.
Aren't there flowers? There are pink flowers around that waterfall.
I know, and they'll know what time of year these flowers are supposed to be there and all this other stuff. And it takes all of the adventure out of it. All of it just drains away. It becomes like a task for them to do. Like they're going on a photo shoot with us and it's a task. Whereas if they wake up in the morning and get in their car and start following us,
that if today is going to be a waterfall or an iceberg or what is there going to be, they've given us their budget. And is there going to be a helicopter ride? They have no idea. They're just like, this is our budget. Do with it what you want. And so they have a budget for us. And then they have a budget for extra activities if they want any. Some people no, which this is just the photography budget. So then we plan small little cute picnics on the way and all those things. It's like, and we end up having amazing friends in every part of the world.
That's so cool. Whenever we travel, when we went to Singapore and 2018 now. Wow, that's gone fast. It was the end of 2018. It was so amazing. We were there for 8 days, and I think we caught up with
more than 8 couples.
Yeah, like 12 couples who
Yeah.
and all of them took us out or took us to their homes, and it was just so
Yeah, they
wonderful
were like,
catching up
we're
with them.
going
And,
to do adventure in Singapore, and they would show us these beautiful places,
Yeah.
and they will take us out for dinner, and it was the best.
Needless to say, we love
experience.
Singapore, and we had a similar experience in California as well.
Yeah.
It was just
Same thing happened there.
and I mean the whole West Coast actually, but,
And Europe.
and Europe, yeah, Europe too.
So we go and now hang out with our couples who become friends, and we know their love story. We know how they, how they are without coffee in the morning. We know how they are when they haven't slept enough, because some days are very, very long.
Well, a lot of them too. I mean, if it's multiple days, we will have had wines together or something like that.
Or they would have cooked for us, or we would have cooked for them. So it's just, and then that's how we get those night shots.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
There's
a lot of serendipity that comes into what we do, because we're actually spending time as friends. It's like, hey, we're all drunk now. It's freezing outside, but let's go try some shots of the stars, And we get amazing stuff out of that, because keen to do something interesting.
It does not feel like work, like at all.
No.
That is the crazy joy of adventure sessions for us. Is like, it has never felt, not a single day felt like, oh.
Yeah, the work comes later when you're going through and
culling the thousands and thousands of images.
It is joy. Honestly, it's such a joy. I'm just like, remember that time?
Well, actually, doing the butts, so on the day, like, we'll think of something like, actually, Sirjana is the one who's really good at visualizing multiple exposures. Yeah. So she'll come up with an idea, usually direct me to click it and direct everything to come together. And then I'll do the Photoshop side of it. So that's really fun. Because working together on that creative thing.
Because the couples inspire us. Yeah. They will say something which I would be like, oh my God, we need to do this then. Like, they will tell us a part of their story, or the way they are having their smaller fights is so cute. It's like, oh, we need to do this. But most importantly, what makes culling very good process and editing is because at every place we've shown them, there are photos of like, oh my God.
Oh, yes.
Even if we don't have a photo of it, we remember it, that, oh my God, as we were driving to that place, they were just shouting in the back of our car. It's like, oh my God, what's happening?
Yeah,
or, in a convoy, if they're driving themselves, then in the convoy, they're just putting their lights on and off because they're like, oh my God, what's happening? So you have those memories, and it is so good. So it has never felt like work since we started doing adventure sessions. So now we do weddings only if they are the couples that we met in the first 2 years of our business, when they were so generous to support us by their graduation shoots or birthday parties that we've shot in those 2 years.
They've been a part of your story.
Or they're friends of those people. And that's when we'll do a wedding. But otherwise, it's all adventure sessions or micro weddings, which are elopements essentially, just with
a few people.
More people.
Say 10 or less.
Yeah. Are you guys doing them now in New Zealand? Because the borders are still closed, right?
Yes.
So that's been a trick.
Oh. So sorry. That was like an instant energy drink.
No, it was like,
But we have 30 couples who are sitting on the other side of the borders, and we're in constant contact with, and just trying to be like, hey guys, this is still going to happen. Everything's great. It will make it awesome for you at some point. But it's really sad for them when that date comes and goes. And so we try and like get in touch that day and be like, hey, this sucks. We wish we were here with you guys. And
and one of the things we are going to start doing is, well, we were watching the Conference and Chills rewinds, and Tim Dunk's FaceTime sessions.
Oh, yes.
We're now slowly emailing all our couples to say, especially because they've been waiting for so long, and the borders are still not open, to offer them FaceTime sessions as they wait. It won't be the same, but we're thinking of doing some double exposures with them. Take their photos and
cool.
have some double exposures of the places we were going to take them, like a little bit, and just create that sort of like, you've got this to wait for, and it's good. So we'll start doing that, but it's oh my God, it's the hardest thing, because a lot of photographers in New Zealand have started shooting again because their couples are in New Zealand, and all of our couples, barring 2, are from overseas. So
and I want to do an adventure session with you guys. I mean, like, I would say this is my budget. Pick anywhere in the world. Let's do something cool. And just, I don't even want to know where I'm going until I need to pack the night before.
Perfect. Oh my gosh. So what we do is, Stacey, we will have like a big session with our couples where we get to understand who they are, what they like, and definitely the most important thing, what they dislike.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to plan anything and they're like, oh, don't like sand.
I don't like heat.
Don't like sand.
That has happened.
Yeah.
I don't like sand. That's apparently a big thing. Don't like sand is a big thing.
Actually, one of the things is coming from Asia, a lot of people think they know what a beach is. Like by their standards, a beach is just like white sands with a few coconuts, and they have this idea of it. In New Zealand, when they come here, like the west coast of New Zealand is just beautifully rugged, black sands.
I've heard of this.
The cliff faces are all just like sandstone, and so they've got these cool shapes to them, and there's just rugged bushland everywhere.
On the side, and
it's so different. So communicating that without showing them Google shots is always tricky as well.
Hard.
But that's why we work so hard to build that trust. That they know that we're gonna create something that's awesome.
Because in the beginning, it used to be a flat out no for beaches.
Well, even no. The most recent elopement that we've put on our blog, they really wanted to be like their thing was like, we don't want another beach. When the day was wet, it was raining constantly the day before, and there was heavy showers all around us, and we ended up going to a place where we knew we weren't going to get saturated. Like, and the bush is just. It's heavy rainforesty bush, so it's just raining under there the whole time. Yeah. There's always water. So we ended up taking them to this deserted spot that's on top of a huge sand dune, just surrounded by nothing but beach and
blue water,
native trees and things. And, but for them, they had said no beach, and they were just like, "Oh my God, this couldn't be more perfect."
Yeah,
and and it was like, it was a sigh of relief for us, but it was also
it was a risky move.
But it was
proof
of
a good questionnaire.
Concept. Yeah.
And a good questionnaire. Right, I'm very proud of that questionnaire. Because I'm like, no, I need to know what exactly not on a beach. Yeah. Because you can't.
What it was about the beach.
Yeah. Like we need to understand that. So we had this long call, and I get to understand that. So none of those are included. And then and for a lot of couples that we were going to shoot in 2020, one of them had picked, because we were like, what about this? What about that? We ended up picking 2 different countries for them. So we were going to do their adventure session in 2 different countries, which was going to be so amazing. Will be one day.
Will be. Yeah.
But so it's really cool because it's not just about photos then. We're going to be their travel guides and show them places that otherwise they wouldn't be going to, because they're not part of the, if you Google something and say, what are the places I need to see in New Zealand or Alaska or somewhere, those places are going to pop up.
This is like a dream. This would be a complete dream for me. When I turned 30, I wanted to go to Ireland and have a real Guinness in a real Irish pub.
Yes.
And I got to do that, except for I went to this real Irish pub. I was so excited. And I sat down and I asked for a Guinness, and the bartender said, "We don't serve that shite here. We serve real beer." He gave me this amazing like Irish craft beer. He's like, "Yeah, we don't serve Guinness. Out you go." But my experience was, went with an ex of mine, and I had to do all the planning and all the prep work and everything else. And I was excited at that very moment to be sitting in the bar because I finally got to where I wanted to be. Yeah. But I didn't enjoy as much as I probably could have because I had to do all of the work. So if that was in my budget, to be like, you guys plan, I'm game for whatever, except for I really want this one thing. You guys do it. It would be my dream.
We don't charge for planning. Planning comes with that joy of a heart. So that definitely will work. Like seeing
She's making a little room for a little something extra. Should we broach this topic?
Yes, we can. So, ta-da!
Yes, that is a baby.
This is what's new in our life.
We just surprised Stacey. If you were recording, I don't know, were we recording?
No.
Dang it.
We got a little bit on the cell phone there.
On a cell phone there. We should send it. You should put it on the side of your podcast. Your reaction was so beautiful. Thank you, Stacey. It was the sweetest reaction, Stacey, though.
Yeah.
It was the sweetest. Thank you. As future parents to be, I mean, it means so much to us to get that reaction, and so full of joy and love. And we're recording reactions because one day, whoever he or she is going to see them and know that, you know, even before he or she was here, so loved, and people were like anticipating them. So yay.
Okay, it's the most amazing. And I think as a fellow entrepreneur, is it not also terrifying?
Oh, yes. Every night. We have already decided that when I'm freaking out, he can't. And when he's freaking out, I can't. It has to happen because we were freaking out at the same time. It was not helping anyone. We had this moment of like, yay, it has happened. We're going to be parents. I had that, it was actually,
Well, the thing for me was the moment where I knew that everything was going to be okay, even though we're still having freakouts, was when she first told me, because I was here and she was a couple of hours drive away because I was here for an appointment. And
for 5 days.
Yay.
For 5 days. I knew, and I couldn't tell him. It was just
I would die.
She wanted to do we do our Tinted Tuesday photos, which is every Tuesday we take photos, self-portraits, and put them up on our Instagram. So she said, okay, you're here now, we're going to sort one of these out. Let's come down to the beach. And
because the light was
we set the camera up and everything. It was a big rush. And then she
explained the whole thing to him, like, it's going to be a double exposure. So you have to be the sun and I have to come and do this to you. He's like, what is this? So I just went up to him and I had the pregnancy test in my hand and I did that, and he's like looking at it.
But oh man, it was that moment where I was, even up until that point, I was still kind of like, man, what can I do? Am I going to be good at this? Is this going to be easy to do? Will I suffer through it? And to that moment, and I was actually genuinely full of joy. It was such a surprise almost to myself, because for so long I've been like, oh man, kids are going to be hard. Kids are going to be so hard.
Let's not. We've been doing that for
it's going to be tricky to do what we do with kids. But
that's like my girlfriend, her name's Rosalind, and she has had a son. Her son's like 1.5 years now, but seeing her go through it, it sounds terrible. Like, let her try it first and I'll see how it works. So, like, she has made me feel like it's possible, because I thought for a long time that same thing. Like, I don't think it would work, and I just love my work so much, and I don't want to sound selfish, but I don't want to give up more of myself than maybe I have in my past life. Long story. It's in a past podcast. You guys can go digging for it. Sure. But seeing her balance her work life and still being really fulfilled in that area, and also being this amazing mother and still this incredible partner, like, fuck, if she can do it, and she makes it look totally doable. Not that it's probably not easy. But seeing someone be successful, I was like, I can do that too.
Doable's okay.
Doable. But when we had decided that we didn't want to have kids,
that was a decision that had been made.
Been made. I remember my dad used to send me these wonderful articles written by Simone de Beauvoir, or like all these existential philosophers, and talking about how the point is to have joy in life. If your work gives you that joy, if it completes you, please don't run around thinking that your life would not be fulfilled without a marriage, without a baby, without buying a house, without, having a ring on your finger. All of that doesn't matter. But if you do have that deep set desire to be a mother, or to bring life to this world by being a father, then it is definitely doable, and it's doable for people who have already set amazing examples and in our world, in all our careers. And
Jacinda
Ardern,
our Prime Minister, gave birth to her first kid
while in office.
So cool. Yeah, that's so cool.
And that was one of the things we discussed when, right at the last minute, it was like, will we be able to? And we both were like, come on, she'd run a country.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yes.
We can do this.
She had little Neve with her on the floor of the UN.
Yeah.
Just like,
So it was like, come on, we can do it. And so if you have that desire, but I don't want anyone who's listening to feel like this is essential to feel complete, because it really is. And we have
it's about finding what makes you feel complete.
Yeah, and happy. Complete probably
but the idea is that if you're not giving birth in the traditional sense, use that extra time and that extra energy you have to give birth to something else for the world.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
You do.
And we have wonderful friends who have chosen not to have kids, and we see they're fulfilled, they're happy, they're content. They've been happy for us, which is we're very thankful for that, to a group of friends who are like pro baby, non-pro baby, and they're all being happy for us. It's amazing. But I don't want anyone to feel the pressure of like,
it's definitely something we experienced a lot as, heading into our mid-30s. People are like, so kids, and it feels like an expectation from society. So it's just about, balancing that out with, if you're not giving birth in the traditional sense, do it the other way,
And last 4 years,
create something amazing for the world.
Last 4 years was this journey of recognizing, are we doing this because of a societal pressure, or are we doing this because we want to do it? And reaching that point of we want to do it was exhilarating, and taking our time for that. We are now so thankful about it. Will not be the young parents, but we are very thankful that we took that time, that we didn't just take a decision because everybody expects us to have kids now. So yay.
We're really lucky to be able to design our own lives. And I think once we fully realize that, it's so powerful, and you really do have control over your own happiness.
Yes. And as a woman, that is so important.
It blew my mind when it actually sunk in my 30s. This was a little late.
It's not just in one area of life. The expectation is everywhere.
Yes.
Makeup, no makeup. Dress, no dress. How presenting yourself, how you're sitting, everything is just... It's this layer of expectation and this journey of understanding. You're right, in 30s, that came to me as well. Like, that's why I'm loving being a 30.
It's so good.
I recognized what being a feminist was and all of that beforehand, but peeling that layers off and finally finding yourself, like, outside of the societal pressure, this is who I am.
Yes.
This is what I like to wear. This is how I like to act. I'm like, people might fear aging. I am excited. I mean,
me too. I was just going to say, like, my friends that are in their 40s or 50s are like, 30s were good, but wait 10 more years. Like, you're just going to feel even more amazing. And I love how this whole conversation has come this full circle, like, as a creative and finding yourself and your purpose and who you are, but also like, that's so much of your life. And we're living that. Fuck, we're so lucky.
We are lucky.
Yes.
It's like, oh my gosh, the fact that we can do what we're doing right now and also live by doing what we're doing right now, it's a dream.
Ever since I met you guys, you are such a unit. Like, you work, like, you talk and interact with each other, and like your energies, and you're such a team. But what happens when you have a difference of opinion, and creative difference of opinion, or like a difference in purpose and where you want to take your business, or you have an idea for something?
When two galaxies get too close to each other, they start to circle, and then they eventually eat each other. I think when we have an opinion that differs from each other, we just eventually end up eating each other until we become this one little singularity. It's not an easy process. No,
because my question I want to know is, Stacey, how does it work when we have similar opinions? Because we do not have them at all in any part of our, like, nothing. There is not a single thing we have a same opinion on.
There is definitely...
It's outside of adventure.
Well, yeah, I really love the fact that as time goes on and as our relationship grows, we've definitely found we are colliding.
Yeah, we're definitely colliding.
I've become very different from who I was 10 years ago. That's for sure.
And me too.
She's taught me so much about, I mean, philosophy and you know, the plight of like females. You know, it's just amazing that for so long, all through my 20s, I had my head in the sand to feminism, and yeah, it's incredible how selfish I was being through the whole of my early 20s and like into So it's an interesting thing that I feel like I'm growing as a person having been with her, and I hope you feel the same way.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah, because we did come to this place from two different cultures, two totally different upbringings.
Yeah, first thing I told him on our first date was, if this goes well and we end up being together, I'm not climbing mountains. Let's just be very clear about the fact that I am not climbing mountains.
At the time we met, I was a trail runner, so that was my fun weekend, was to go running up a mountain.
I'm with you, Sirjana. Like when you said the jog thing, you're like, oh, she's going up for a jog. I'm like, yeah, that won't be me. You won't get me out the door with that.
But now I climb mountains for a living, because that's just amazing. Like that changed. But I think to simply answer this question, how it happens is a problem is presented or a situation arises. We obviously have different opinions about it. The first thing we say to each other is, how even are you thinking that? That's the first thing. Yeah. We ask that over and over again from each other, because we are perplexed still now after 9 or 10, almost 10 years together, that how is this person so different from me? So we like, what? We do all of that. And after 10 minutes of doing that, we're like, all right, which part of you wouldn't give up at all? So he would be like, okay. So that happens even when we put up a photo on social media. We never like the same photo. Or we edit
like never, right?
Never. He'd be like, this photo. I'm like, what is in this photo? This is a stupid photo. And he'd be like, yours is a stupid photo.
Usually I'm looking for something that's technically strong, and she's looking for something that's emotionally strong.
Yeah.
So we try to find a balance in between there. Yeah.
So he would be like, okay, I definitely need this and this in a photo. And I'll be like, I'll definitely need this. So we'll find a third photo.
Often it's a matter of cropping the photo that she really loves. So
so
it's technically stronger.
So everything from the photo we put up to the captions we put, everything is so
that has been an interesting thing. I've found that my voice on our social media has diminished. Well, I mean, it never really was that strong, but whenever I do something, it gets attention because people recognize it as being something different. And I mean, it's I don't know, I find that interesting that there's two very different people coming into this creative side of things. And I really think that works. Works for us.
And
even
our
if it is behind the
couples
scenes.
see us constantly arguing.
Oh, yes.
Constantly.
In fact, we used to hide that. We'd be like, okay, let's go behind this tree and talk this out. You know, let's do it in the car. You know, we've got to hold it together. And then one day we had some little tip that was like
about where they should be standing.
Pretty much. And it was just like a little sort of back of you.
We thought angry, but we thought it sounded very angry, but our couple was like, oh my God, you sound just like us. And so now we get
it's real.
And so now we get this from every couple, because we're constantly like, whatever, man. Whatever. And so it'd be like, we'll just go there. I'm like, no, we won't. Doesn't listen to me. And so all of that starts happening, and the couple is enjoying it. It becomes real, but we really don't have a singular idea, which is similar. Like, no.
So people are so lucky that they get that. So it's not just like, if someone were to hire you, whether it's like someone that wants to be mentored by you or someone wants to be photographed by you, that they get these two different like creative, experiences even.
Yes, absolutely.
It would be so neat to be like, if you were to post and be like, this is like the one that Ben wanted to post, and this is the one that Sirjana wanted to post, and these are like from the same, that would be so great. I'd love to swipe through and be like, but I get both.
We do that, but also what happens is we have a very strong competition. I think I'm the more competitive one in the relationship.
Definitely.
Yeah.
She's competitive in life in general, and that's why we are where we are today.
Yeah.
I mean, all things considered, I mean, I like to think that I'm a competent photographer, but as far as the business side of things goes, that drive for me is to take photos. Sirjana is to meet other people and create those connections. And so that means that she gets out and literally does that. I would be happy walking down the street taking photos of random people, you know. So that's where I credit everything, you know, all of where we are today to Sirjana for all of her hard work.
Can I just take it? Thank you.
I was like, good man. Points, all the points.
So what I was saying was, because we are no singular idea, so even on the shoot, Ben will be like, oh, let's have them here, and I'll be like, what is that background? So we'll be like, okay, Ben is going to take over now, and he's going to do the next half an hour. So Ben is shooting, then I'm doing the second shooting. It's his style, but I'm just like taking other side photos, and then it's my time, and I'm just directing the shoot. But what happens after the shoot is, for every session, we have a scorecard on whose photos ended up most on social media. And at the end of the year, we have a very, like, for him, it must be fun. But for me, it's a very, who won? Yeah. And I like feel it, and I get sad, and I also brag when I win a lot. so that happens. So that keeps us on our toes as well.
Yeah.
All the time.
That competition means that we're always trying to outdo each other.
Yeah. Always. I at least
always. I really want to on a shoot too. I don't want to get shown up. Because
but you take it so sweetly.
When we met, I was the diehard photographer. Sirjana knew how to take photos, but she was the artist and poet and philosopher and psychologist
and
marketer and all of the other cool stuff. So that was why I claimed photography as my
He taught
niche.
me photography.
Yeah.
Like, from everything he would take, what is this? If this is the setting, if this is where you're shooting, what would the ISO be? And what would be your shutter speed? And there used to be so many
pop quizzes. And so I'm
glad they're over.
I like to be in that position of winning that every year, but it hasn't happened every year. So
it's a good balance then.
Yeah, so that keeps us on our toes. And so there is no, it's amazing when people tell us you look like a team.
Yeah.
Because I've like so many times before, people didn't tell us that. So many times I'll be like, why are we not a team? Like, why is this everything supposed to be? Why can't we have a singular idea? And then people started, through Instagram stories, started telling us that you guys look like such a unit and everything. And we're like, okay, maybe we're missing something. Maybe there is a underlying thread that connects us.
What I know is that the sum of the two parts is way greater than the individual.
If you were to tell anyone that's listening, anyone that's been struggling through 2020 or something going on in their business, or maybe they're about to have a baby or thinking about having a baby, any of the topics we talked about, of all the things we've chatted about, is there something you wish people would take away from?
Any other year, I would have said something different. But in 2020, what I'm telling people is, don't make harsh decisions. Sometimes let things unfold very beautifully. So anxiety is definitely not going to be a friend this year. If you're feeling anxiety, sit with it, breathe through it, do breathing exercise, write gratitude journals, but don't take harsh decisions before their time. Like, things are going to unfold and they're going to blossom and give you direction on their own. So now that we have time to be at home, to be without work for a lot of us, it is going to bring a lot of anxiety, financial anxiety, where we stand anxiety, all of that. But if we just sit with it, it's going to give us solutions as well. So don't rush to take decisions right now. The decisions, the answers will come to you. They are there around you. They come from
often something might change that'll help you out as well, especially this year.
It's not like airy fairy spiritual thing where I'm saying they're around you. What I mean is that everything that you have learned from the day you were born to 2020, everything is sitting in your subconscious, waiting to be accessed. So all we have to do is just sit and let all those experiences come together and help us in making a wonderful decision. That's what we are doing every time anxiety strikes us, which is crazy for me. I'm not a person who waits, but I'm practicing that, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think that also applies outside of 2020 as entrepreneurs and creatives. So much of what you are as a creative person is basically how you've lived your life up until this point. Like, it's every little bit of it comes to you. So taking that time to be still and to consider what it is you're doing and where this is coming from.
And what do you want to do now that we have time?
What do you want to do with this information? Take this time that we have this year. It's been like, no, I'm not going to call it a gift, because
no,
too many people. Definitely been a horrible situation,
Yeah.
but it's got a silver lining.
Yeah.
The opportunity, more than silver, the opportunity it has given us is time.
Yeah.
And we don't play reckless with it by just being anxious.
Yeah.
It is something. It's an opportunity. If you're playing a board game, that's an opportunity card that you've been given. Use it wisely. It's not the other card that has been given. You know, it's just focus on the good things, like we said in the beginning, and that is that you have ample of time, less money, ample time. How can we use time to make more money or make more happiness or make more gratitude in our life?
Relieve anxiety. Yeah.
Sirjana and Ben, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and your wisdom. I'm going to say you guys are the beautiful people. I know I love when you guys sign in like, hey, beautiful people. I'm like, I know that voice.
Thank you for such enlightening questions, insightful things that you asked us and made us think as well. So it was an hour well spent. Thank you.